So we could start this interview by you telling us your name and what you do.
My name is Becker. I'm Vice President of Sales, Merchandising, and Brand Management for Accessory headquarters. Like our two big projects are GoSack and Hayden Harnett. So those are the two brands that they own.
Okay.
And those are, we do like little things in New York, but those are predominantly run out of here.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that because when we first met, I knew you had only accessories and I knew that some were owned by you guys, but I didn't know. I thought it was kind of a merge of like a corporate showroom and an independent showroom, but it's not. You're all under one umbrella.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that's neat.
Yeah, it's a really interesting way it all like kind of came together. But the office is owned by Accessory headquarters, whose main office is in New York, who's owned by Abe Chehebar.
Okay.
And then this is their second office, the West Coast office.
Whoa.
So we have like little capsules of all the licensed brands that we own.
Okay.
And then the two brands that we actually own, GoSack and Hayden Harnett, are like, we do all of the marketing, all the PR, all the merchandising, the photo shoots.
Got it.
Everything happens here. And then those will both have an e-commerce platform, and all of that goes out of here too. So all of our customer service, and because our warehouse is right in Compton.
Oh, nice. So you guys are in the area. Like you're building out your West Coast infrastructure, starting with the showroom, distribution, e-commerce. That's cool that you're going to run that out of here too.
Yeah, we just launched one of the websites last week, actually.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It is. It's hard work to launch an e-commerce. I know it's not a retail store where you have the same kind of build, but it takes a lot of background building of like what buttons make sense so people don't get lost. And so at the end of the day, it's got to be user friendly, and that's hard to do.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I had no idea went into it.
Right?
Like we started putting together the website, and at first, like, you know, I directed the photo shoot and everything. So I was thinking, okay, we need website banners, and we need, you know, we always take photos vertically.
Okay.
And like we never have enough horizontal. Well, in the past,
I
because
hear
people
you.
always think catalog wise. So if you're always geared towards catalog, it's always
vertical shot.
So I'm
That's a
always
good point.
making sure that they keep like turning, or the photographer, a lot of the photographers I work with who are used to fashion photography want to go vertical because they get the whole body, the whole look, and like horizontally they kind of cut people off. But that's what you need for like the banner of the website.
Absolutely.
So I thought about all of that.
Smart that you knew that ahead of time.
You really learn these things because you run into problems before you.
100%.
Like I worked for a company who launched their e-commerce website, and that was our number one problem, was that we had like getting a banner that was shot the right way, big enough, with enough like cropping space that you actually had like a decent photo when it got into those dimensions.
Absolutely.
Because the banner is like very oddly horizontally proportionate usually.
Yeah.
It's like very long.
Almost like a panoramic. As weird as that sounds. Like
Yeah.
I know.
And when you
exactly
deal
what
with
you're talking
accessories, it's harder because you can't.
about. Oh yeah.
You have to make it look natural with them like sitting if you want it like cropped in properly, or if they're standing, making sure that they're like holding it high enough that if
Totally.
it's cropped, you don't
get the
have
product.
like their chin in the bag or something.
So true, because it's a lifestyle representation. So it's not like you're just doing product photography. You're incorporating a human and where they're sitting and the whole environment. You are spot on that it is not necessarily easy to figure out.
Yeah.
And every website is a tiny bit different, but the banners are consistent, right? It's that long, skinny kind of, and it's hard to kind of get a pretty shot that reflects the entire thing. So kudos to you, because that is not easy.
Well, that turned out to be the easiest part. I didn't even think about the whole back end, like where the buttons lead and all the organization, and if one thing is typed incorrectly, the whole like system just falls to shambles.
I've had this same debate, which might sound boring to other people, but this exact same debate with other people, that the most important part of a website is the search function. Because if somebody misspells something, because they usually will, because they heard about it or they read about it and it's just off memory, that if it doesn't find it, they assume you don't have it and they bail. And it's like, that's how fast. And I don't know, there's figures about how long people spend on websites on average and how much money they spend, and to kind of like treat it as a science is
it's my new
difficult.
hobby.
Oh, right?
It's so nerdy, but it's so
love it.
interesting.
No,
I sit there all the time. I'm like, what did people search?
Yeah.
And like, where did they come from? They came from Facebook, but not from Instagram. Why not from Instagram?
Totally, see, I
Did
love
they buy
this.
when they came from Facebook?
Yes.
Which one did they click on? It's so like, it's like a wormhole you can get sucked into.
Yes.
But it's really, really interesting to find out like where they're coming from and how long they're staying and what they're buying and who's converting, why aren't they converting.
Yeah.
Like we had a problem when we first went live with the payment portal. So we had like all these orders sitting in the carts, and we were like, why are they sitting in the cart and no one's converting? Or it's just interesting to find out too, like where your customer base is coming from nowadays. Like I thought for sure a majority of our traffic would come from Instagram, but Facebook is like hands down beating it.
You're kidding?
No.
Really?
Like,
wow.
So much traffic was directed just from boosting like some Instagram posts.
I thought for sure it would be.
And I wouldn't have even thought about it, but the web designer like pointed it out. They were like, just something you might want to look at.
Wow. Wow. So it is. It's like learning your customer from another perspective. At the end of the day, it is about customer experience. And so if you're not paying attention to their trends or their behaviors, then you kind of don't know how to speak to them when it matters. And it makes a lot of sense that brands take the time, or companies take the time to do the research, but not everybody has the interest, or they don't think it's important, or the budget. And so that kind of gets lost, and people like, I guess, us who think it's cool, it's like, it's a conversation that should be had. It's like, that's another way to learn your market.
Well, the search function too is interesting because I didn't even think about that, like during the building process, but since I am involved in like the design and merchandising aspect of it, it's interesting to see what people are looking for that we don't have. Like people were expecting us to have like jewelry.
Really?
Because we do all bags. We will eventually have watches and shoes for the brand as well. But yeah, I guess that bohemian aesthetic, that's something that people are really interested in, like free people kind of jewelry, anthropology, like, you know, especially now with all the tassels and the ornamentation, like that's something that kind of feels like it would go along with the aesthetic of the brand that we launched. So people were searching for necklaces and cuffs, and just knowing that is like really interesting. Or even the brand had existed at one point and we actually bought it and relaunched it. But seeing what old styles people were searching. So like our number one searched item was one of the company's old like styles. So we decided for the next collection that we're going to relaunch it as like a heritage collection.
Like the classic silhouettes. I feel like big brands do that, and it's like paying tribute to the legacy of your brand and the people who followed along. And it's really cool for you guys to take note of that and now put it into the collection. Well,
that brand is really interesting too, since it already kind of existed and then went away and relaunched. So there's like an existing customer base that's now a little older but still has that love of when they first discovered the brand, and now there's all these new people that we're reaching through new marketing, through the new designs. So it's kind of finding a way to please these people who are really happy with what we've done with the brand by changing it to vegan leather and making it a little more accessible and mainstream, and then also staying true and loyal to our older customers who waited for the relaunch and like reached out to us. I had people emailing me like every week, like, is it launching yet? Is it launching yet? It says spring 17. And even now, like, I didn't realize how much customer service goes into the whole process.
I'm sure that's a huge chunk of what you do.
I've spent a lot of time talking to the customers, but you know, it's interesting. People want to be heard, you know, and in the age of Amazon where people can write a customer service email and have a response in 5 minutes and have free return, like shipping label printed for them within, you know, an hour. It's really important to be talking to them.
That is such a trip, because usually people are so fickle, like they forget easily, and the fact that they kept loyal after you had kind of taken a spell, that's actually fascinating.
It was really, really interesting to see, and so that search bar has been like really important for me because like I said, we're going to launch that whole heritage thing, but because so many of them reached out to me in email too, saying like, will you be bringing back this style? Or like, I'm kind of disappointed to see that you don't have anything from who the brand originally was. Because it used to be leather. We completely redid that. So some people were a little taken aback because they're like, the fabrication is different, the styling's different. And, but I found a lot of people too who just wanted to be heard. So once you wrote back and were like, we're so sorry that that's the way you feel, like, you know, take this discount code, give us a try. If it doesn't work out, like return it on us, like, and just offering that option, like a lot of them did go and convert into sales too, which was interesting.
That's actually really great. Because just offering a discount code doesn't necessarily say, That's the saving grace if you had a complaint. But the fact that they did it means you're doing really well at your customer service, making them feel like they're heard. And it's not like just, okay, check that one off the list, let me get on to the next thing. You guys are paying real attention to your customers.
Yeah, well, I think it's important, especially right now when you first launch, like, because that first experience could easily be your last, you know? And there's so many companies out there right now that, while I think ours is very special and unique, like, if they had a bad experience, it's very easy for them to go and find a tote or a satchel or backpack somewhere else, because they had a poor experience, and that's what they associate us with now.
That says a lot about your company, about your staff, about your leadership, that you take the time on the details, talking to the customer. The fact that you use data analytics to create silhouettes for the next collection, I'm just geeking out over, and I'm going to tell everyone that, because that's really designing for your people. You know what I mean? It's not to say that it takes the creativity out of what you all do. You still get to do that, but it's hearing them out, like keeping them honest and loyal and everybody on the same page. And I think that should be celebrated in and of itself.
Yeah, I think it's important, you know?
Why don't you tell me a little bit about the founder? What's his name? His full name?
Abe Chehebar.
Okay. Because when I read it on paper, I always stop myself from trying to pronounce it. Because I know I'm gonna fail, so I just don't. So now I have it on camera.
Abe Chehebar.
Awesome.
Yeah, Abe, Abe's like an industry veteran. He's been around forever. But he used to own Le Sportsac.
Oh my gosh. I know that brand's been around since I can remember a time. I think of them when Jansport backpacks and like that kind of heyday, but they were more luxury.
Yes.
I think, Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So he used to own the Sportsac and then wound up selling it.
The fact that the founder has had a legacy in fashion and he's a veteran in this business is really fascinating too. Did he always work in production or design, or has he kind of moved around different parts of the industry?
I think Abe has always had his hands in all aspects of the business.
That's gotta be fun.
Even now, as the owner, he's very, very hands-on, which I think is great. I think that's the reason the company is doing so well, and the reason that everyone who works for him is really happy.
That's awesome.
He's amazing. He goes to China, he works on the design, he works on the pricing, he works on production. I talk to him when I'm working on photo shoots, when we're developing the website, so he's like very involved in the day-to-day, which I think is important.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good example for other future entrepreneurs and business owners. It's like your people want you around.
Yeah.
They actually like your influence. You started something and you want to be part of that too. Tell me how you got into fashion. Yeah. Did you always know you wanted to work in fashion? I guess that's a better first question.
When I first went to school, I studied language and art history.
Awesome. Where'd you get your undergrad?
I went to University of Delaware.
Nice. And so then when did you turn more, because it's always compounded experience, right? I went to UCLA for anthropology. Yeah. It's the same thing. And I ended up in fashion because it's all relative to what you're doing today. You still draw on those experiences. It's not that you might not be reading literature every day, but or learning the newest linguistic issue, but you're still using what you've learned into your profession now. So when did you more so turn it into a creative?
I guess I always liked fashion, and I always liked the more creative arts. And so when I was looking to go to school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I kind of wanted to do everything.
Yeah, that's the best. It is.
And I always liked fashion, but I never really considered it a career possibility for me because I couldn't draw.
Yeah.
And then I grew up in a house where I was the valedictorian, so I was always very academic driven. And so my parents were not having the idea of a career that was not like
a doctor,
president,
right.
MD. They were like, just because you like to shop doesn't mean
you could turn it into a job.
You're gonna go work in fashion.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
So I was like, okay, what do I do? And I always did really well in languages, so that's how I wound up going to school for that. And then as it became time to graduate, I was like, okay, well now I have this great degree in language and art history, but what am I gonna do for work?
Right.
So I was researching different options, and I had always liked fashion, and my dad had passed away the year before, and so as I was getting ready to go into the job force, I was like, he had a job that like was very prestigious, that made a lot of money, that supported our family, but he hated it.
Really?
Yeah, like every day he hated going to the office.
What do you think he would have wanted to do? Like, what would have
I
been
think
his
he wanted
dream
to be
job?
a history teacher.
Really? That's so cool.
But he worked like in finance.
Okay, all right.
For real estate.
I hear you loud and clear. It's completely different sides of the brain.
Yeah,
I get
and
it.
he worked, yeah. But yeah, so I think I just was trying to think of what I don't want to follow that path. He passed away very young doing something he didn't like, spending most of his time doing it.
Okay.
So how can I take this 4 years and like find a job that I really, really like? And so I had always liked fashion, and I was like, I should just explore this. And I was gonna just take classes on the side for fun. I was like, I'll go have my real day-to-day job, but this will be like my little outlet. And maybe one day I'll have a little side business.
Sure.
And then I found FITM had this 1-year program for people who already had bachelors. And I was like, oh, well, this would be perfect. It's 1 year. I take classes. They have like the business aspect of the industry. So even though I can't draw, I can, maybe find something that's a right fit.
Absolutely.
And I like put in my information to get like, you couldn't just find all the information. You had to like submit your email for someone to call you or
Really?
That's how they get you.
Okay, I was gonna say that is a nice hook.
They're like, find out more, like put in your email or whatever. And someone called me like that night.
Wow.
And we just like got talking, and I kind of told them where I was at and what I really liked about fashion and what I was trying to do. And they were like, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I guess I would be a buyer because I can't really draw. And they were like, oh, honey, you don't need to draw nowadays. Like, we got computers for that.
I love it.
And I was like, really?
That's so
and
cool.
so, I submitted like everything. I'm a firm believer that if it's meant to be, it will happen like very easily type of thing. And everything, not that it was easy, but everything lined up very easy. I didn't have to really fight to find it or to like all the deadlines lined up perfectly. Like the scholarship deadline, the entrance deadline, like I found someone who's just really passionate about me, so she helped get me where I needed to be to make sure that everything fell into line. So I wound up applying for product development, and I got in, and I started in design. So I did dresses, product development, and design, and then I went. My first job was great, but it was an experience.
Yeah. Were you more so designing? Were you in the design room for your first job?
I was doing very much product development. So we had an art department who like drew the dresses.
Okay.
And did all the photoshopping and that kind of stuff. But then
you'd be in the
I
production
took those
line, like the samples, and that's fun.
I communicated with the factories. I sat in on all the fit sessions. It was cool, but I wanted to be more creative. So that's why I wound up leaving. And then I took a step down. I went to became like an assistant designer at an accessory company.
Oh my gosh.
In handbags. And
No
that's
way.
how it all began.
So it really slipped right into place, one step after the other.
I didn't think I wanted to do accessories, or I had never really thought about accessories. Like it kind of just fell into place for me. I was looking for something that would let me be more on what the art girls were doing. I wanted to be more involved in the product conception and not just like, here's the idea, now make it happen.
Right.
So I was able to find a job that kind of let me do both, that kind of let me sit there and creatively conceptualize the line and then still utilize all the skills I had with talking to the factory and getting it through production and costed correctly and all that kind of stuff. So
that is two completely different skill sets, and at the same time they would complement in one person. To have both of those skill sets would be really, really valuable. I'm sure your company is really, really happy to have you. How long have you been with AHQ?
I joined AHQ in February, so
very cool.
A couple months.
Very cool. It's nice. So this is your first location on the West Coast.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
Well, I know we're happy to have you here at the Numart, that's for sure.
Thank you. Yeah. We're happy to be here.
Yeah. So I guess we wrap these interviews usually with one question that we ask everybody, and it used to, in the first season, it was, if you have a happy or fond memory of the building, the Numart, what would that be? But now we're asking people, what is your most powerful memory of your whole, from knowing you wanted to get into fashion until now, like what is like maybe one thing that literally sticks out in your mind? You could take however long you want, but it's like, because that's
such a monumental question.
Right? And everyone, and you can get as broad or as specific as you want, but people come up with just like some of the coolest stories that they, and it makes them recollect their journey or how, and it, because like even you deciding to go from a 4-year in a completely different field into something like this, it changes you and it kind of shapes the rest of your life. And so I guess it's more so for advice for anybody watching the video that like things don't just happen by chance in a sense. Like you follow the path that's kind of like easily in front of you, I guess. But yeah, people have said before, oh, it's my friends, my neighbors, my colleagues. Like they'll come up with every answer in the book to kind of just say it's them or it's this. Or we talked in the last interview about, she calls it the Garmento handshake, but it's like, it's so funny. She goes, it's the Garmento handshake. I go, explain. It's people who work in fashion who size up not other people, but their clothes. So when you go to say, hi, how are you? Kind of like touch their jacket a little bit. You know what I'm talking about? You kind of like feel the bracelet. You're like, yeah, that's gold plated. Like you kind of like, you just, because you know the industry, you're kind of always.
That is so funny.
So yeah, I mean, it could
be. The Garmento
handshake. So it's just like.
I've definitely done that to someone.
I have too. And I didn't know it until she said it.
I'd be like, you're in dresses? Really?
Like, really? I mean, look at that hemline.
Is that one of your dresses?
Right, exactly. It's just this kind of like being in the industry, like something that changed you. Right, exactly. That's like a failure. But it's so true, and it happens. And so whatever that, a memory or an experience or story, even moving here is a story. Like you coming from New York and coming to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know. The most memorable moment of my whole career.
Yeah, or something powerful that like, changed the way you thought about something. Yeah. Yeah. It can be anything. It could be a person. You've described mentorship in some of your experience. Do you find that like the people that have been in your career with you have helped kind of shape and mold who you've become? And do you think that's important for the generation?
Definitely. I mean, I think everyone who I've ever worked with has somehow contributed to who I am, whether it's like a skill that I learned or a skill that I learned not to pick up.
Right. We learn through failure too,
I will say that I think it's really important the people you work with. You could love what you do, you can make great money, but if you're surrounded by people that don't make it a pleasant experience or that can completely ruin a job.
Yeah.
But
changes the vibe of the room even on a photo shoot. If you have like one person who doesn't exactly gel with everybody else, it changes the entire environment. So it is. People do matter. And that's powerful and that's good advice. See, you should do it.
Wait, I have a good one for you.
Yeah.
I don't want to leave you with such a disappointing moment.
Not at all. None of this has been disappointing. Lovely.
I will say this. I was embarrassed about this for a really long time, but there was one job that I had. I was at the company a very long time, and I got let go. And at the time, I thought it was the worst thing that could have ever happened.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Oh, it's so true. It's so true.
I was devastated. Yeah. I definitely took a hit to the ego. I was embarrassed to tell anyone about it. I started doubting, like, am I even good at what I do? Like, did they just keep me around because I was there? Right. I mean, that's not anything anyone wants to say out loud, but that's really what you think when that happens for the most part.
Though. And everyone's been fired at some point. So you have that feeling. We just don't talk about it. Yeah. And you're right.
But it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. Yeah. If I'm being completely honest. Yeah. Like, it came at the right time. And I remember in the moment I thought that like I'm never gonna work again. Right. And this is the worst thing ever and what's gonna happen now and am I even good at anything? And in 2 weeks I had 3 job offers.
Oh my gosh.
And
just based on your reputation and what you do for a living, like similar industry?
I think
so great.
But I think it's not even just that. I think it really forced me to like that whole experience, like getting let go and having to reapply and having to interview and having to. I think when you're at a company, like I was at that company for over 3 years, you're not interviewing regularly. No. You're not really reviewing what you're doing. You're kind of just living the day-to-day situations. But when you go through the interview process, you're selling yourself. So
Yeah.
you really have to do some research and think, like, some self-research and think about, like, what are my skills and what am I good at and what am I not good at? What are my weaknesses? Why didn't this work out? And just doing that self-analysis and going into those interviews, like, getting the jobs were great, but it was that whole process about, like, I wound up getting let go and feeling like I have no skills and I'm terrible at what I do, to really, like, going through the interview process and making myself believe that I'm good at what I do.
100%.
Like, that just wasn't where I was supposed to be,
100%.
and really truly believing it. And I think that's why I wound up, like, having my choice of new opportunity. But that was probably at the time, I thought it was the worst thing that could have ever happened.
Of course, everyone
And
does.
I never want to go through that again. I hope that nobody ever has to, but it's probably the best thing that ever happened in my career. Yeah, because my mentality ever since that has been very different, like, for the better.
And it applies to everything else in your life too. That is the best answer I think we're gonna get all season. No, really, I got chills because it's the honesty. It's like we have these conversations, and it doesn't have to be so like everyone's got a front. We all have gone through something like that. I've been fired, and I thought the same thing. I was like, what did I do wrong? Oh my gosh, like, did I slip at something? Was I failure at something? I found out 8 months after that or 7 months after that, it was upper management wanted to bring in their people. So it was just business. It had nothing to do with me, but I racked my brain for months thinking it was me. Like, literally something that I had done. And going through, like you said, of, okay, now I have to look at my resume and kind of really bring up my highlight, and that was good. It was a good exercise to kind of be broke down and then kind of come back up.
Yeah, it's really, and the truth is there's so many things going on in the industry that, like, I think it's instinct to be like, what did I do wrong? What's wrong with me? Like, it's easier to think that something is wrong with you than to think that in those moments, than to think like, oh, I was great. They just didn't realize it.
Sure.
You know?
Sure. And you don't want to, like, as weird as it sounds, you don't want to tell yourself that.
Yeah.
But it's kind
you're
of
like,
the
I'm
truth.
not delusional, but and I'm not saying that's the case for everyone who ever gets let go. But
no. If you do something wrong and you're being brought to the firing line and you get let go for it, then that you're addressing what happened at the job.
Yeah.
But this, if you're just let go with no real reason, those are almost the worst ones, because you do take it in on yourself and you're thinking, oh, I did something. That had to be me. Because
well, and I
otherwise,
think
why not?
we talked about it a little bit earlier too. It's so easy to become complacent and to become comfortable, and so I think, like, sometimes you do get to that level where you are kind of comfortable and change becomes a little scary because you've been somewhere, you know what you're doing, like, it's a safe zone, you know these people, and, you know, for you to look outside and be like, can I go somewhere else and do this? Like, you know, I'm whatever it is, I'm young, I have this background, I have that background, I don't know this skill, I do know that, whatever it is, like, but to be just, like, thrown into the position and have to figure it out, like,
good
for me, it really helped me build my confidence. Like, I now, like, I hope that it never happens again, but if it were to happen again, like,
you're stronger from that happening already. Yeah, no,
I don't think I would go home and cry for 2 days straight.
Which I did do. I was devastated. But that is probably the best piece of advice I've ever heard for the followers, especially on the podcast, because I've got my sister in the room here. She's off camera, but Abigail listens to our podcast. This is the next generation of people coming into our industry. And if they don't hear these things, then they're going to feel the same things we felt. And again, it will slow everyone down.
Yeah.
If we can try to help save a little bit of their pain, then they can just turn it around a little faster. It would be, you know, good for the industry and the community as a whole. So I think that's some of the best advice I've heard on both seasons, and the best answer I've heard to that question thus far. So really, that was wonderful. Thank you so much.
I'm glad you liked it.
Oh yeah. So the real last question would be, where does everyone find AHQ?
Yeah, so AHQ's website is www.ahq.com. That's where
nice.
you can find all of the brands that we license. Okay. And both of our office location information. But the brand that we just launched, Hayden by Hayden Harnett, that we spoke about earlier, you can find this on Facebook, Hayden by Hayden Harnett, Instagram, cool. Hayden Harnett. Join our mailing list for discounts.
Nice.
And then we will be launching GoSack, which is a really super fun printed nylon brand.
Perfect.
Within the next couple of weeks.
It's exciting stuff. I'll have to keep my ear to the ground for what you guys are up to next, because it sounds like things are about to roll. So thank you so much for everything today.
Thank you for having me.